Very good evening, all, in the online monthly series Education for Life. This month, we have physical, digital, and phygital. During COVID pandemic, there were several limitations for the process of teaching and learning, but somehow we could find out new ways of learning that was adopting digital technologies. And somehow this new term, phygital, has been coined. So today we have eminent guest for today's topic, Professor Sandeep Sancheti, Provost, Marwadi University, co-founder, adorer.com. He was Vice President AIU, that is Association of Indian Universities, NIT Delhi and NIT Surathkal. Welcome, Professor Sancheti.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Puneet.
The next eminent guest is Sri Sanjay Padode. He is President Vijaybhoomi University, Chairman of IFIM, Group of Institutions. He has founded Data Line and Research Technologies Limited, DART, that was for online access of financial information. He's a popular name in stock exchange. Welcome, Sanjay ji.
Thank you.
We extend our thanks, sincere thanks to Deetya for providing this platform of interaction. Deetya is an integrated platform developed by Trigen Technologies USA, which digitally transforms education institutions, enabling all stakeholders, students, faculty, parents, and administrators to focus on their respective roles and take informed decisions, leveraging creativity, collaboration, personal experiences in learning. Deetya makes Indian youth future ready to lead in digital connected global world. Deetya's mission is to break barriers in learning and make Indian education impactful, meaningful, and effective for every student. The event is also live on Facebook, and the recorded sessions and as well as the earlier sessions are available on Deetya's YouTube channel. To start with Sancheti ji, because you are a guru, we have already exercised various forms of learning, learning by doing, learning by interaction, learning by experience. So new means of this learning, phygital. According to you, what is phygital?
Thank you, Puneet. Good evening to everyone, especially to the co-panelists, Padode sir and Puneet. It's a good opportunity for us to understand the new changing dimensions more clearly. Phygital is not necessarily a new term. As far as I know, phygital is a term which was probably coined around 20 years back. And it has become popular in recent times for the reasons which are obvious. But maybe 20 years back, this word was coined, and this had some connotation in terms of what you call physical plus digital, and that's how it was coined. Everyone possibly knows that, those who are attending it. In my opinion, this is not a complete definition in today's context. Phygital cannot be just a combination of physical and digital. I will take it a step beyond, and I will say that it is a combination of physical plus digital plus personal. The physi possibly will come from physical, and GI will possibly come from digital. In between, NAL or AL from the end will possibly come from personal or local. Today, everyone needs an education which is highly personalized and localized. And that's when I would say the term physical would be complete, that it can deliver what it intends to deliver, not just it's a combination of two, which is what we call phygital. So it's changing, and there should be a new definition, according to me, for this: localization or personalization. Localization, I'll attribute it to the institutions, which can localize what they want to deliver and why they want to deliver. Same courses, possibly more skill orientation, more some orientation, more design orientation, and so localization can happen. And personalization, obviously, a student's desire, and that's why it should be physical. I'll just give you a small explanation to that. Possibly education 1.0 was more of physical, that you had to be in Gurukul. Education 2.0 was also possibly physical, because it was more with the books and various other things, because printed stuff had come and massification of education happened. Education 3.0 probably initiated Phygital, which what you can possibly say is the emergence of use of digital technologies, which happened, internet and all computing and all that possibly came into this, and therefore education 3.0. And therefore you can say that up to 3.0, we saw the Phygital in some form with original Phygital, but in education 4.0, which is more of personalization of education, the Phygital should have slightly expanded meaning. And I would say that in the current context, personalization of education has become more or less compulsory for all of us. In 3.0, the Phygital was deeply rooted, but in 4.0, it is compulsory for us, is what I can say, essential for us. And a final word on this is, all these things will coexist as far as the education is concerned. To some extent, you can say education 1.0 was also personalization. If I was in Gurukul, I'll be adopted by a guru, and Sandeep Sancheti will be taught by someone, and then only it will be. So it was maybe more of a personalization. So some things will go back in terms of time and space, and maybe style, and then will emerge again in some new form, and that's what the form Phygital for me right now, Puneet. Thank you.
Thank you for simplifying the complicated term and having different layers and dimensions. Phygital. Coming to Sanjay ji. As mentioned by Professor Sancheti, 4.0 education 4.0 is about personalized education system. So all of us, most of us have been trained for learning through physical mode. You know, our mind is trained to have learning through interactions, one-on-one interactions, or might be group interactions. So your take on how physical learning is different from digital learning?
Very good evening to all of you. A very good evening, Professor Sancheti, and thank you for inviting me on this. So I think there is no difference when it comes to learning between digital or physical. I think what's more important is learning. So if you really look at, I think I completely agree with Professor Sancheti when he says things need to get personalized. And it always had to be personalized in education, because you cannot teach somebody, I mean, one cannot be a master of everything, and you've got to teach him exactly what he wants to learn or what she wants to learn. So from that perspective, but we went the mass production way, we went the process-oriented way, therefore we had classes, we have a regimented curriculum, and there was no other mechanics of actually delivering personalized education, except in the past 1.0, which Professor Sancheti mentioned was Gurukul. But for that kind of education, you would need so many gurus and so many Gurukuls that was physically not possible. With the upcoming of the exponential technologies, which is what is making the world phygital or digital or whatever you may call, what's happening is we are now able to measure many more metrics besides just the metric of marks that was determining the learner's success in the past. I can measure the learning analytics, I can do learning analytics, I can figure out how a student is faring with a particular concept in a particular subject, and what kind of intervention I can provide to that student at that point of time. So that is the kind of data that's available to me. But again, the most important thing is to have teachers that can use that data to actually teach. So for my perspective, I think teachers, it's not a problem of students of learning. Okay, they will learn from electronic, digital, or Zoom platform. I think it is a challenge to the entire education system, which was very much accustomed to delivering things in a physical manner. Now with the forced conversion to digital when COVID-19 happened, and then slowly realizing that digital has a little more advantage, or a little more, it's got its own advantages that come into picture. So I can globalize, I can get people from anywhere to participate, I can create cross-cultural groups. There are many tools suddenly that open in terms of making learning happen. The challenge to our teachers today is, are we geared up to use all these to deliver learning? And I think that is the key thing. And I think we got to be training more of the teachers, and I think learners will happen. So learners, I mean, people have adapted. I didn't have to teach my mother how to use a mobile. She learned it on her own. I didn't have to teach a child who's like 3 or 4 years. He can, play around with the iPad and use a mobile. So we don't have to teach all that, because that is quite, there's an entire industry of digital working to ensure that the adaptation by human beings is easy. The whole UI, UX industry is working towards that. So that is not going to be an issue. I think the key issue here is going to be how we will deliver learning using this medium through teachers who are enabled by the digital platform. So that would be my point. And it's all about learner success. For me, it's all about learner success in the future, always.
Thank you, Sanjay ji, for keeping in front, student in the front. So what is important is the success of learner is more important than anything else. And the rest of things are process, means, technology. These are byproducts or, in support to that objective. So well quoted, we need to have a proper ecosystem where students, parents, institutions, teachers and institutions are aligned on one single platform, that is of technology. Coming to Professor Sancheti, to start with our learning process from home, we have seen that when our mother is communicating to us, our mind is receptive. Sometimes our father is more accepted when it comes to forced learning processes, right? So as you said that education is a personalized process. So our mind, every time we cannot read instruction manuals and we can learn by our own. Somewhere we need to have a physical method where, interaction with human being. So how to, make a path or adopt a balanced path where blending of physical and digital is there. Blended teaching learning method is there.
Sure. A small addition to the previous part, which Padode have also amplified, that while the Phygital existed for a long time, there were 3 catalysts for that, such that it came to fore. And number one, obviously, and those have happened in last few years. Number one is the Corona, as we know, that it made us change and required new methods. The second possibly is the NEP and the new education policy indicating the possibilities of changes and use of technology and so on and so forth. So these have happened typically in last 2.5 years. And then maybe last 5 years, you can say so-called the change in terms of what we call learning or lifelong learning. So once you have a lifelong learning, it is for sure that you cannot be sitting in the classes every time in physical mode. And therefore, the physical had its own limitations. So these 3 acted as catalysts. And these catalysts also tell us that the new reactions will be of different kind, and those reactions will be of blended nature, as you are trying to see. I may just, for sake of completeness, I'm not necessarily saying something new, but for sake of completeness, I'd like to say that one would learn. Learning is more important, by the way, in this case. So pardon me if I'm not using the word teaching regularly. Learning is more important. So one has to learn, and the learning can happen by listening, by reading, by doing, by performing, by discussing, by model making, by simulating, by empirical measurements, or even by destroying of certain objects or something like that, or even failing to make or do something can also make you learn. There are too many forms of learning. I would say that the entire world, entire step of your functioning can be your new classroom. And once your new classroom can have so much of variety for you to learn, then possibly you know that the best learning will come from only the blended way. It is something like food equivalence can be given to a food which we eat. We may all have the same ingredients, but we make different dishes out of that. We do different blending. We do different maturing of those dishes which we create or whatever. And therefore they taste differently, they look differently, they perform differently, they're charged differently, and so on and so forth. So blending is something which is going to be the order of the day, as we see it in our transportation, as we see it in our food, as we see it in our dressing, as we see it in many other choices which we have today. Blending will be the order of the day. And why blending? Because blending encompasses all these things, what you call virtual, distance, online, remote, whatever these names which were popular in past, still popular, not so popular, doesn't matter. Blended will take care of all that. As far as policies are concerned, most of the companies or the organizations of the world are talking about blended. But personally, given a choice, like I differed in the definition of Phygital, I would once again differ in the definition of what they call as blending. Blending is probably you're mixing something in some proportions. Maybe blended mode means you're mixing certain modes. I'll not confine my blending to that. I will rather reject this name and call it flexible learning rather than blended learning. Why I call it flexible learning is its flexibility not only in terms of modes, its flexibility in terms of time, its flexibility in terms of languages. It can also be flexibility in some other ways in it, in whatever way you would like to use it. And therefore, to get rid of all the old connotations where people get confused, hey, virtual is better than distance or vice versa, or online is better than real or physical, all these are different confusions. Flexible simply says, go as you please, do as you like. If you don't want to have your own choice, you can go with the standard models which an institution will prescribe. But ultimately, in my opinion, the blended should be rephrased as flexible if it is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sancheti. Yes, of course, anytime, anywhere is the beauty of digital learning or online learning. And of course, the digital quality content is readily available for everyone. So, it's more democratic. Might be some student is unable to get admission in premier institutions like IITs or IIMs or Harvard or wherever. But the lectures and the notes and all are available digitally. One can freely access or dirt cheap rate it is available through online mode. Coming to Sanjayji, many students as well as parents are still having this inhibition about the effectiveness of physical learning or digital learning. If you compare physical learning process, of course, it requires more resources, time, energy, and all. So digital learning is always like anytime, anywhere, on as well as on single click. So is it that effective as the physical learning is?
So Puneet, let me tell you, I think let's see how the student views a learning platform, when he's attached to digital. Probably he's got headphone on his ears and his eyes glued onto a screen, correct? I think you can't get more than that attention of a student in a class as well. So in a class of 120 students or 60 students, the student gets distracted by many more things outside. So here's an opportunity for a teacher to actually whisper into the ear of the student and as well as capture the full thing. But the catch here is how can you make it engaging? Because the computer platform itself is a multitasking operating system. So you don't know whether it's browsing Google, watching YouTube, watching the lecture. That's the catch. And if the student is moving away attention to something else, then I would say that the lecture or whatever is happening as a teaching intervention is not captivating enough for the student to be locked in. And that's where the whole challenge is. How do you make digital learning more engaging? I mean, there are many ways. I'm sure if you are going to, because digital learning opens up a vista of opportunities. Let's say I'm lecturing from Kanpur to a bunch of students in Bangalore. Nothing stops me from inviting a person to join me from the US to be part of the class and give a specialized input in whatever I'm talking. Nobody stops me from bringing an industry practitioner into the class who can make the class more interesting and relevant. So it is about how I use my stage. Okay, when a faculty walks into class, he prepares how he's going to use the board, how he's going to use the PPT, how he's going to use the various teaching tools, teaching aids. Similarly, in this stage, he has got multiple options to use. He can use movies, he can use presentations, he can bring live people online from different places and make it more interactive. More importantly, we have to look at the concept of flipped classroom. I think, like you rightly said, Puneet, it's all, I mean, knowledge is there. It's not about, again, teaching knowledge. It's not like the good old days of teaching where you had a reader who would read from a book, then you had a lecturer who would lecture on it, and then you would start reflecting on it, question on it by engaging with the professor. Now I can read, I can watch, I can learn from a lot of static material. You have so much of edtech companies doing so much of good stuff and good content there on there. But what's more important in the engagement is how to facilitate learning. The whole flip is from teaching to learning. The flipped classroom is about teaching to learning. It's not about teaching in a different way. It's about focusing more on checking whether the student has learned or not. So getting the student to speak instead of the teacher speaking. And you are always the facilitator. I think if you use those things, it can be a very, very, very effective medium. It will solve our GR problems in our country. And let me tell you, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time that we will adapt to digital, and digital will be like, I can't even call it the new normal. It'd be a normal life of learning. And even if you look at your, when you're starting to work now in this fast changing world where the velocity of change is so high, your knowledge is getting redundant by the day, by the second. So everybody has to catch up on learning. So there's no other way. It means I can't leave my work and go to school, right? I have to learn it from whichever medium I have. So that adaptability is going to be the process of natural selection in education. If that evolution is happening, it's not going anywhere. We have to accept it, and it's going to be there.
Yes. Well said, Sanjay ji. And speed is the beauty of digital platform. You get instant feedback both ways. Right? The teacher is having some opinion about the student or vice versa. Student is not happy with the teacher. One can adopt some other teacher or some other means of learning that particular subject or topic. Sanjay ji has mentioned GER, gross enrollment ratio. This has been a big problematic issue for various state governments. Sancheti ji, can this digital learning process help us in enhancing the GER?
Yeah, sure. I can only vouch it by saying that technology has always been a force to scale up things. When you're talking of GER, you're talking of nothing else but scaling up the students enrolling into higher education. Scaling up operations happen very easily with the technology. Sanjay ji obviously mentioned some of the benefits of digital. I would add to that card or that list of values which digital will bring would be in terms of repeatability, in terms of reproducibility, in terms of reliability. Someone will take it with a question mark, I don't mind, but it's reliable that whatever I'm speaking to one group, I'll do the same thing to other group without much of distortion, and so on and so forth. And then it will be always making everything reconfigurable. I make a brick and mortar thing in one corner of a land or a town or city. I can use it only there. Nothing much can be done if it is not used But if I have a digital tool instead of that in which I have invested, I can beam it anywhere and I can connect with anywhere. So reconfigurability. So there are so many things which digital can do, and therefore it has that beauty of doing whatever you would want it to do for you. Now, when it comes to GER, we know that one of the biggest challenge we have is shortage of teachers. The other biggest challenge we have is the presence of institutions where they are supposed to be, let's say in rural settings. As an example, I'm saying, why they are not in rural settings? Because they are not affordable. Because there are not enough students, there are not enough classes, and then obviously not enough people wanting to live there for whatever reason. So the rural is some kind of a problem. The other problem could also be the diversity. What I want to study is not being offered in the institution in my neighborhood, even though there is an institution in the neighborhood. Then the teacher shortage. And then even if everything is available, the cost can be exorbitantly high. I think I've indirectly given an answer. The answer with all these four problems, which I've just inherently narrated here, lies in use of technology. The massification will cut down the cost. The global access through technology will bring it to the rural folks also. The aspects of that reproducibility, reliability, repeatability can possibly take care of shortage of teacher. I'm not saying that you should do it that way, but can take care. If Sandeep Sancheti cannot teach all the classes, he can take a class of 300 to 500 using technology, or maybe he can put all his materials so that people can study later. So all those what you call bottlenecks which we had in the education space in terms of GER, including the cost, will be taken care by what we call the digital these days. And hence, we should not be refrained from adopting it. But here I must say that everything which comes into existence, as I was saying, even for education or phygital mode, initially, everything which comes into what you call existence certainly finds its own place. Digital will have its own place, but there are many other things in learnings which I have also said are not necessarily digital or physical also. When I'm doing my project, I may be doing my project at 5 different places, in an industry, in a lab, in friend's house. It's not necessarily in a classroom. So it goes beyond the borders of what you call physical thing. And to suggest that what comes into existence continues to remain into existence and finds a niche for itself, you'll have to take examples from the electronic world, whether it's the radio, telegraph, telephone, FM, walkie-talkie, pager, mobile, satellite, optical, microwave, whatever, Bluetooth, infrared, modem, anything you know, fiber optic, everything which you know possibly would be finding a niche use here. I think education will also go that way. Every mode of teaching learning will possibly have a niche for itself. What medical people can learn from dummies or mannequins and things like that, whether we call it physical or digital, I'm not worried. But it have to be there, learning by doing and things like that, by models and simulations. So yes, GER will be taken care. The only thing we need to take care while increasing the GER is the quality issue, in my opinion. Otherwise, technology is fully geared to help us with the GER. Even though GER is to be doubled, I would say it's more than doubled, because our base will keep increasing from 1.3 to 1.4 to 1.5. I don't know what are those projections, but the base will keep increasing. And therefore, we cannot go ahead with the same conventional methods of past. Technology will have to find a very good and new use in helping GER. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sancheti. Rightly said, the cost of education and the availability of institutions in remotest areas. It's a big challenge for to overcome or enhance the GER. But I'm sure with the fast changing scenarios of availability of various digital platforms of learning, as well as the universities, they are aligning themselves as per the NEP 2020 to provide online education. And I'm sure at least government universities, they'll be able to offer quality content at lesser cost. I mean, lesser than the physical education.
Sorry to interrupt you. It will be a big boon for government institutions, which has always struggled with shortage of faculty.
Correct, sir. Now coming to Sanjay ji, will digital learning make education more supporting, or will enhance the inclusive approach? In what way this new means of education could transform India?
Wow, that is definitely it will. Okay, there is no doubt about the fact that digital is the panacea to all our troubles of related to education. Inclusivity, 100%, because I'm agnostic of distance, I'm agnostic of boundaries. The only things that will stop us now are the regulations, which don't allow us to go cross-border. But otherwise, I think the technology is pervasive. It allows you to cross borders, goes across. So inclusivity, 100%. I don't see any problem with that. The only challenge here is going to be the learning quotient and the overall objective of learner success. So if you really, analyze GER is just the percentage of people who post their higher secondary take up higher education. So that is the percentage. But that doesn't truly mean that these people are employable after being graduates. So if you look at the various kinds of reports that keep coming out, are saying that employability is yet suspect when it comes to graduates. How do we break that barrier is a bigger question for India than to just actually meet the GR. GR we will meet, just like we meet our GDP numbers and stuff like that. But the actual effectiveness of this GR is going to be what needs to be really tested, and how digital can play a role on it. It's phenomenal. Now, if you look at companies like the EdTech companies, which are like the Upgrad, these are the initial round of EdTech companies. I don't, we should not make a conclusion that this is what EdTech is. This is the beginning of EdTech. And as you all know, that pioneers are always martyrs. So they are the guys who are laying the foundation for EdTech, how EdTech is eventually going to evolve. So you have the Coursera's, you have the EDX, you have the Upgrad, you have the Byju's. You have all of these people trying to create a complete ecosystem for education, which practically did not exist 5 years ago. So you have, to the existing brick and mortar, you have just added another powerhouse of education, another engine for education, okay, which is now going to, the impact of this plus this is going to be foreseen in the future. So definitely there is going to be a lot, and these people operate by market forces. They are not people who are there to just give out degrees. Eventually, they will be challenged by the market saying that whatever degree I'm doing with you is not getting me a job. It's not getting me what I wanted as an objective. And these being companies driven by market forces are definitely going to start taking those corrective measures in a very, very agile manner. I don't see any reason why they will, go slow like the university system or the other education system, which has to deal with a lot of other challenges. So these guys are very nimble, agile. So the transformation and the change that's going to happen from that side is going to be very, very, very disruptive. And that change is, in my view, going to be very positive for creating an efficient workforce within our country. So we'll not only meet the GR, but we'll also create a very effective, we'll create many effective learning platforms. So for example, I agree that we don't have the faculty, but now the world is open for us to get faculty. Sooner or later, all these EdTech companies are going to pull our own Indians who are like, top-end faculties in the best of business schools and universities abroad. They'll get them to basically teach to Indians. So automatically the problem of faculty also gets diluted in a way because boundaries are diluted. So when you look at it from that perspective, things are going to be very, very different. That's all I can say, and it's going to be very positive.
Thank you, Sanjay ji, for giving a problem statement for incubation centers and budding entrepreneurs. They can explore their journey of startup in this, to develop a EdTech company for their own institutional needs or local needs or needs of society. Coming to Sancheti ji, in your opinion on what will be the shape of future classroom? The place, exactly the place, the desk where we learn.
The shape of the future classroom will not be decided by any one of us, Puneet. The shape of the classroom would be in the hands of the people who will make a class out of it. I think partly I said something in my last answer that the entire world, entire space, entire to-do list will be a learning element for all of them. It will be a continuous one. It will be on the job. It will be while you are traveling. It will be while you are sipping coffee. I think that's the best class I would advocate if I can. And even better would be that go under a tree, have some peaceful time, think about the things you want to solve or learn, and possibly that can probably do wonders in certain cases. Basically, it can be different for different ones. There need not be any standard classroom. There need not be any standard teacher. There need not be any standard time. And obviously, once these are not there, the physical things are also given out. While all of us may be studying in the same class, in the same subject, we may choose to be doing so in different languages. And we may also choose to be doing so at a different speed. Maybe Sanjay ji can be faster and you can be somewhere in the middle and I can be on a slower route, but we'll all be studying the same thing. So classroom was kind of one size fits all. I think that notion has to go out. The poor teacher had a tough job in handling those classes where around 60 to 100 students with all sorts of diverse backgrounds, expectations, and interests were sitting together. I must, however, recall here that I once happened to teach a class of 19 students in AIT Bangkok, which was obviously a slightly advanced course, but an elective course. And I had 12 nationalities in those 19 students. And by the way, that was one of the largest for an elective kind of a subject because it is only postgraduate institution at that time. And that was my life's most challenging classroom activity. Why? Because people came from different language background, different background of advanced, let's say, mathematics or understanding of the introductory courses. So I think today we should help a student to have a classroom of his own. Like we say, degree of your own. I think I would not mind saying that I should have a classroom of my own. For example, if I want to perform a lab experiment 5 times, 10 times with certain different precision, I should be able to do it. Why should I be confined to those 1.5 to 2 hours with a group of 2-3 students and with the eye of a technician that Sandeep is going to damage something very soon as soon as I remove my attention from him? I think that notion should go away. And therefore the classroom should be without barriers, without boundaries, without time limitations. Classroom should be everything. That's my imagination.
Thank you, sir, for acknowledging that committing mistake is a process of learning. Committing mistake is not, doing something blunder. So many of us, as well as, I mean, especially parents, they think that their ward has done some mistake. I mean, committed a mistake, so it's a crime. It's not like that. It's a part and parcel of the learning process. Coming to Sanjay ji, the language barriers, rightly said by Professor Sancheti. This is a key challenge for online mode as well, especially in our country, where diversified states are there, language, dialects, many problems are there. So how these issues can be addressed in online mode?
So first, let me go back to answering, just add to what Professor Sancheti said in terms of what type of a classroom you see in the future. If you're looking in the immediate future, it might become hybrid, it might become blended, it might become virtual. Okay, these are the only 3 things that I see. But if you see it in the distant future, I see it as a classroom designed for the student to have customized learning. So every student is going to have a different classroom. In other words, the educator is never going to decide the shape of the classroom. the shape of the classroom will be defined by the learner. So the learner will have probably on a screen, he will have somewhere Google open, somewhere some course open, somewhere, and his mind locked into a faculty who's teaching, or he's on a project or doing some simulation or doing some modeling, and this will be the way he will learn. Somebody might be doing learning on his own, so he might be actually trying to craft a particular device or make something on a simulated environment or model something and test it to get some data which he runs through another simulator to get some other learning. So things are going to be so different that classes will practically get customized. And I will go back to what Professor Sancheti said. So it's about personalization. If it is personalization, then classes will also have to be definitely personalized. And that would be what I see in the distant future. As far as different languages are concerned, I don't see that as posing a major challenge, okay? Because you have transliteration services. There are whole lot of whole lot of work going on natural language processing, and it's going at a very, very rapid pace. So even if you're teaching in Hindi or you're teaching in English, I'll be able to, if not hear it in that language, I will definitely be able to read it in my language. It'll get translated and I'll be able to read what it means to me in my language. And when I ask a question, the faculty will be able to read in the language that the faculty understands. So language barriers, I think, will be taken care by technology quite easily. It's not far away and it will happen. And in terms of content is already multilingual at this point of time. You have all kinds of content which is available on Google. So the Chinese also learn physics, chemistry, math, and they learn it in Chinese. Some people learn it in Spanish. Some people learn it in Hindi. So it's all there. The same thing is all there for people to actually pick on. It's just a matter of how we engage with different people, with different cultures, with different languages. I think that is also going to be bridged by these tools which are going to be pushed into. So since he was talking about Bangkok, I can just give you an incident about Bangkok. In Bangkok, if you go and take a cab, I mean, the guy is never going to understand what you say because he refuses to. He may, but he refuses to understand what you're saying unless and until you use Google Translator, you speak in English, show him in Thai, and then he understands where you want to go. So that's already prevalent now these days, and I'm sure that's going to come very soon into education.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. So we have seen that the rate of completion of online courses is not very encouraging. I was referring to some data. So it was indicating 16% or 20%, something like that. So might be there are certain reasons that means of access is not proper, internet connectivity, or the content is not that of that quality that they are able to engage a student, or a student is not in a right frame to allow himself or herself to continue the course. So how to address this particular issue, Professor Sancheti?
I'd like to share my views on this, but a small addition to the last point, which Sanjay had addressed about the language. And I fully agree because I was also myself tempted to quote my Chinese friends who did PhD with me in UK way back 30 years back. Anything which we speak, we are natural to English, so there was no problem, but anything which we speak, they'll ask us to speak slowly, put it in their device or whatever other handheld tools they had, and try to translate it in Chinese. Such services were available and were effective because I've seen the translations of some of them and understood it in a reverse fashion also. So those kind of things were there, and it's becoming more and more easy now. It will be a very unified world when it comes to living. It will be truly a global village where everyone can see each other, meet each other, and speak in a language where other one understands you. I think that would be the real global village. So that's going to happen. Coming to your point of rate of completion, I would say as an educator here, I'm not too much worried about this aspect called what is measured as rate of completion. I do not know who is measuring it and why they are measuring it. Are they able to measure learning? I think that's the most important, I said, not completion. Learning, part of it can be testing, but not necessarily that if I've done it, that I've learned everything. The point here is that I would learn about something because of my curiosity and not necessarily because of certification, not necessarily because I want a job, not necessarily because it will fetch me few more brownie points or dollars or rupees in my job. No, I don't necessarily do everything in my life which is connected with that. I do it for different reasons. And obviously, when my job demands, I'm just learning the aspects of what my job demands rather than aspect of completing it that yes, someone is from an external world certifying that. So if my job my job provider says that Sandeep, you have to have that certification and then only you'll be given a job, then I'll do that also. Otherwise, I can prove to them that yes, I know the job and I can do it. So I think rate of completion is something which we should not be oversimplifying, also not overly worried about. People should learn what they want to learn, not necessarily for anything else. I think that should be as simple. How many certificates can I give you, Puneet, if I have to seek a job in your college or your company? How many certificates can I attach or should I attach? The more I attach, the more confused you will be that where is this guy going to go to? I possibly will, I find that Puneet requires this particular skill for this particular job where I'm applying. Maybe I'll try to seek my certification in that domain and then apply to you. And not necessarily that I know this language, I can play this game and I've been a world beater in this and that. I need not tell everything unless it has some connection like that. So rate of completion should not be a real worry, and especially when I'm saying about the learning age will be from 18 to 80 kind of a thing. 18 to 80, because you are in active life in general. Life expectancy has gone up. Many people easily work up to 70, 75. Certainly people like us called vice chancellors get time up to 70 to work. And therefore, and people in business and other domains very easily go with a work life of 80 years. And therefore, in those span periods of life, certificate does not bear too much of importance. And therefore, let's not go ahead with that analysis with a very deep sense of concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think this analysis is just for the sake of analysis. The focus is learning, and the more you know, the more chances of your usefulness, employability, knowledge sharing are there. And you said vice chancellor. I call it as vice chancellor. So the more you grow, you become more and more wise. So coming to Sanjay ji, since you owe several institutions in Pune as well as in Bangalore, so in the light of NEP or in the light of this compulsive need to change the modes of teaching and learning process, so how a new institution or might be an old institution should start to unwind this whole process or replace the conventional process to the new methods?
So Puneet, we have actually set up Vijaybhoomi University on the lines of NEP. So we are positioning ourselves as India's first liberal professional university. What that implies is that we actually give admission to the student to the university and not to a program. And the student has the ability to use the program, choose the program up till the second year. So it's all choice-based credit system. It's all multidisciplinary. It's all transdisciplinary, multiple entries, multiple exits. We take admissions at the beginning of every quarter. So it's January, April, July, October. We are not going by the annual cycle as well. So we are like tuned to that. And I mean, it's easy for us because we're starting with no legacy. Okay. But for an existing institution, so I also run existing institutions in Bangalore, to do a somersault and go from a very curriculum driven, a very syllabus driven methodology of teaching to a complete liberal way of teaching is quite a effort. and it's going to be a transformative journey. So you'll have to plot where you are and where you want to be, and you'll have to plot that transformation journey over a period of time. You can't do it in one go. If you try to do it in one go, I think you'll bend your back and break your back. I mean, the risk of that is very, very large. So it has to be done in a very, very systematic manner and changed over a period of time. I think the whole of our education system would go that way. Some of the things of NEP are very, very forward looking. I think even the world has not thought of it, like the academic credit bank, where the big challenge for the traditional university would be that when I'm giving a degree, I'm giving a degree based on the credits that the student has taken from me. Now here is the academic credit bank, which is allowing a student to pick up subjects from some other university that you have to take into your system. And when you take into your system, how does your system really adapt to that? Are we geared up to add courses to our syllabus which never existed to our syllabus before? Even our operational systems would need to basically factor that in. So it is a step-by-step process that is going to happen. But NEP, in my view, is an extremely transformative policy. It is a great intent by the government. The execution would need to be done on the ground by educators. I don't think we have to leave it to the government. Government, it's like, 1991 when government said, okay, license Raj is out. NEP is very similar to that. You guys can do what you like. Okay, it's practically like that. And we on the ground now, who are always in this legacy mode of being controlled by the regulator and operate within the scope given by the regulator, are suddenly feeling naked because that cover is gone. And now we are saying, now what do I do? And there are ideas coming to our minds which we want to do, but also it's our old habits die hard, that kind of a system. So we are going through those kind of friction in our own minds, but we'll get over it. It's something that if the government holds on to that intent and drives it, I'm very sure Indians are very adaptable. We have adapted to everything, whether it's a new technology, it's a new culture, and it's easy for us. Being an Indian, I'm very proud to be an Indian, and I think we guys are very quick at adapting, and we'll make that happen. So it's in the next 5 years, we would have digested NEP, and NEP would be shining across India and pushing our universities to top ranks in the university lists. I'm pretty confident.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. The COVID scenario, we have already proven that we are pioneer in terms of development of vaccine, distributing vaccine, vaccination camps, everything. So we are quite adaptive whenever there is a need of any crisis. Coming to Sancheti ji, in the light of rightly said by Sanjay ji that we may need right kind of framework or policy framework, but NEP is having both ways. This is a prescription. It is a suggestive form. It's an advice. If you do it, it is good for your own education system. So you as a Vice Chancellor, how are you exercising new pedagogies, developing new methods in the light of NEP or the need of the hour of adopting digital education?
So some of these have already been spelled out by NEP itself. In Indian context, sometimes it becomes easy for people to go ahead with something if it is pushed from the top, or maybe top-down kind of an approach. And I don't necessarily advocate that kind of a thing. I'm one who will be more advocating on the autonomy. Autonomy would also mean that what UGCs or AICTs or governments want to do, they will suggest. What the promoters and owners or whatever philosophers who set up the institutions with a mandate that I want to deliver this, they will also try to do that. What teachers and administrators collectively decide in their senates and academic councils, they will also deliver that. Same way, it should be left to the teachers that how they deliver that, and finally to the students that what they want to be delivered. So autonomy would be something very, very important in this whole chain of events. And if you understand the word student centricity clearly, in a literal way, you can say that translation is students' autonomy. he does what he wants to do. He learns what he wants to learn rather than what we want to teach. And therefore, autonomy would be very important in this kind of an initiative where you want to deliver or make NEP functional. All right, NEP is a structural element. The body has to be filled in by all of us, but in different ways, as Padode sir was himself saying, that it should be different for different ones. And that is how it will possibly take shape. However, to facilitate our functioning and promoting it more actively, elements like ABC, Academic Bank of Credit, where I was heavily involved, have already taken shape. And I think that's going to be a very defining policy, not only for us. Already there were calls, many other countries wanted to know something about this, what we are doing, how we are doing. I know implementation would be a challenge, but at least on paper, the policy seems to be very good and foolproof. And this policy has only given rise to what you call multiple entry, multiple exit also. This policy is going to give rise to more forms of credit exchanges or joint degrees and so on and so forth. The challenges which Sanjay ji was naming, that how to accept what credits and all that, new frameworks will come. There'll have to be some important committees like which will be on credit mapping and credit transfers and all that. Each institution should work out a mechanism for that. And then obviously it doesn't mean that the world is going to change upside down. If NEP has come, NEP has not said that everything has to be changed tomorrow. NEP says that what we have said should be done in 15, 20 years. I meet a lot of my friends online and otherwise. They say, sir, this has been imposed by NEP on us. I think they're not standing very tall on their feet, I would say. They're not understanding the dynamics of it. NEP simply says that if you wish to do it, for example, ABC, I was questioned by some people that, sir, ABC is imposed and we don't know much about it. I said, where is it imposed? Tell me one notification where it says it is imposed. Institution can choose to be part of ABC or deny it. And within institution, a degree program can say we are linked to ABC or not. You can do it. Within that, you can say within an institution or a specialization also, you can say that. So choices are there. People will have to use their discretion to say whether we are part of it or not. But it has all that beauty to deliver the new generational education without much of foundation at any level, starting from students to the top level, I think. So NEP, in that sense, can be implemented easily. In my opinion, the real big education which is required is how to use your power to do what you want to do. I think that's a big question when it comes to implementation of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sancheti ji. I think it was really a very fruitful, enlightening session, and we have attempted to cover all the dimensions. There still might be some points are still remaining, so with the request that in coming months we might be assembling again to uncover the unanswered queries, with a note that life is a journey to explore self. So Phygital is your new partner in this self-exploration. I extend my sincere thanks to Sanjay ji for taking out valuable time and sharing all the necessary information. Sancheti ji, though you are not in your seat, in your town, you're somewhere else, but still you managed to be with us and fulfill your commitment as usual. So with this note, thank you, Deetya. And just to remind that the certificates are available in the link given in the chat box. Next month with the new topic, we'll be meeting you again. Till then, goodbye, namaskar.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Puneet ji, and thanks to Trigen and also for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Puneet, and nice meeting you again, Professor Sancheti. We'll meet soon again.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice